You mentioned the chants, so I kind of want to get into the environment at Azteca. We were told it was only going to be 50,000, max capacity in there. It didn't even look like that.
Then they mentioned another 10,000, so it's supposed to be 60,000, Seb.
So it wasn't 60,000 tonight, I'll tell you that for sure. You did hear the American Outlaws from time to time, the 1,000 of them. There were huge problems with the fan ID system kind of collapsing before games, so maybe some of that was people genuinely were there. They just couldn't get into their seats on time. But the stadium itself didn't seem to regain the weight that it's had in the past, did it, Mal?
The Estadio Azteca factor was not there, and it hasn't been there for a while now. It's not just about this game, and I think we all understand why. People are not happy with the performance of the Mexican national team. This was also a big test for the Mexican Federation. How are you going to handle a game after what happened in Querétaro? And we saw the pictures of people at halftime still trying to find a way in. The rest of security, I think it worked out pretty well. U.S. fans were doing their thing and no issues so far reported, which is great. But the atmosphere just wasn't there. And the disconnection between the fans and the players is evident at this point.
It's evident, and I want to get into that as well. But I'd like for you to explain, because you've explained it on this show a few times, and it's so relevant to me. I don't think it carries this weight anymore. Azteca Pesa doesn't carry that weight for other factors. They no longer play during the day. Right. The NFL came in and reduced the seating from 120 to what, 90?
No, less than that. Yeah, 80, 85.
For premium seating.
So if you watch the game on TV in the U.S., right, the camera angle facing the benches, right, you do get to see fans in that first tier of the stands. But on the other side, they wanted to do luxury boxes. So that pressure of having the fans right next to the field is not there anymore.
35,000 fans.
And the players have complained about that constantly. And it's not going to change because it's all about the money. How do you generate more revenue using that big Estadio Azteca?
So you no longer play during the day, where it's very hot.
How hot was it today at 3 p.m.
We did a hit for Sports Center. It was very warm.
It was 80 degrees. Yeah, the sun's beating down on you, and that's when you really feel the altitude. I mean, I think we saw some guys struggling towards the end of the game, but when the sun-altitude combo, you don't want any of that. And the last time that the U.S. came to Mexico and didn't get a point at least
was during the day.
They played the
2-1 defeat versus Mexico. Charlie Davies' goal. Yes, and I've played. I know it's different circumstances, club soccer, but going to Seoul, different stadium. We played at noon. Sun beating right down you. The combo of the cocktail that is the altitude, the smog, and the heat. It is killer, and that truly gives you a home field advantage. And then you put another 35,000 people in those stands. That's the home field advantage. That's when it carried its weight. Now, during these circumstances where these players, this team, a lot of doubts, and everything surrounding with this stadium, you can see why it's not been that important.
We also saw Yetling out of gas being substituted, but I also saw Chucky Lozano out of gas, not being substituted, staying on the pitch. And I saw Héctor Herrera struggling, Edson Alvarez struggling, Raúl Jiménez struggling. So that home field advantage for the Mexican national team is not there anymore. And a few months ago on this show on Fútbol Américas, I told you guys, the Mexican Soccer Federation, while there was this ban for Estadio Azteca, did consider moving home field for the Mexican national team from Mexico City to either Guadalajara or Monterrey. The Rayados Stadium was actually a firm candidate to host World Cup qualifier games. In the end, they decided to stay at Estadio Azteca, but the conversation's still going on social media.
To the point about kind of security and all that, there was something like 2,500 security on site for this. And they actually had some people mixed in with the fans to hopefully identify people if the chant was heard. We didn't really hear the chant, at least on television, did we?
It was drowned out by a Mexico chant during the PA, so we don't know.
Which is one way to combat it.
Yeah, that's fine.
I did check with our ESPN reporters inside the stadium. They said homophobic chant was not there to be heard.
We did hear, early on there was a little bit of ambiente. I felt like there was that stretch. Remember we were watching the game, I think it was like 18th minute or something. There's the Olés start, and then of course the next pass goes out of bounds. There was also Cielito Lindo, maybe the first half hour, but then there were, at the end of the game, the Fuera Tata chants. It's not a loss now, and we had talked about maybe a loss could cost him his job, but it has dropped points at home. It's against the United States. This isn't going to help his popularity rating in Mexico, is it?
Not at all. Sometimes in sports, we talk about moral victories, right? Well, now I want to talk about moral defeats. And this feels like a moral defeat for the Mexican national team, a moral defeat for Tata Martino. I told you guys right after the final whistle, I saw Tata Martino giving Greg Berhalter the 2 thumbs up, like saying, yo, nice doing business with you, buddy. Yeah. And that's part of the problem, because he's not realizing that the performance has not been there for a while, and the fans have realized it, and the Fuera Tata chant is not new, by the way. It's not the first time that it has happened, but it feels like a moral defeat for the Mexican national team.